and the wife is right. And the rabbi says to his wife, you are right too. Okay, so this is what I mean by, if you can open up your mind, and that's the kind of rabbi mindset we need to get a hold of in order to perceive every side of the story. Okay. Because they are all right, really. So in lecture 1, therefore, very, very quickly, we took the concept of finite versus infinite, which is two mutually exclusive concepts, like the husband and wife. They can't both be right, but then we define it using critical thinking process. Finite means measurable, infinite means immeasurable, then we introduce additional units to measure large numbers, and then the immeasurable becomes measurable. We go down to 10 to the power 303 we stop there, but we can keep going. Abstract concepts such as infinity and so on and so forth can be quantified, and we break through duality. That's the main thing. We were able to break through yes and no. That is the most important concept, okay? Because yes and no are two sides, but we have no two sides. No box, no two sides. That's how we apply what we've learned from the first 2 lectures to approach those big questions. So opposites are product of small mindsets, and so on. So in other words, what's duality? Well, duality is relative, it's opposite, yin versus yang, finite versus infinite, male versus female, black versus white, quality versus quantity, living versus death, north versus south, polarity, positive versus negative, good versus evil, concepts. If we are trapped in the duality concept, we can never find the truth. So lecture 1 was probably the most important lecture in any metaphysical or spiritual approach, is to break through duality. Okay? It is the fundamental premise that we start from, is to break through the concept of reality, or else all successive effort, no matter how hard you work, we won't get anywhere. Distortion, so we've gone through all this, okay, so we don't need to. And even with a perfect 20/20 vision of our eyesight, we recognize we're only perceiving part of the vibrating spectrum. Okay, we cannot see X-ray, gamma ray, and we cannot see the infrared radiation, and so on and so forth. And we know that, when it comes to eyesight, we're inferior to a lot of animals. When we come to smell, we're very inferior to dogs, and so on and so forth. So, therefore, if we don't see ghosts or God, it doesn't mean, I hope at least I have you convinced that seeing is not necessarily believing. Okay? Just because we don't see something does not mean it's not there. It just means we are handicapped. We are limited in that perception of reality. So, now let's try to understand the view continuing from the beginning of our lecture. This thing, okay? So we see all this. So we see no evidence of supernatural things, okay? What do we see? We see ourselves as human beings, male, female. Each of us is made up of all kinds of anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, everything, all our different tissues, bones and heart and fetus, baby, hair, skin, kidney, all the organs. We are just a conglomerate of all these things made up together, and it all begins with a sperm fertilizing an egg, right? All this complexity begins with a single cell, right? So we can reduce ourselves to this thing, right? This is the beginning of all of us, right? Very simple. So after the egg is fertilized by the sperm, then the DNA, one from the mother, half the DNA from the mother, half the DNA from the father reunite to form what we call heterozygous or complete DNA. And then that cell undergoes cell division, so 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, and so it keeps dividing like a cancer cell. Okay, keep going. And within 10 months for human beings, it goes from this to like a baby. Now, let's take a very interesting look at, the same goes with every other things in the sexually reproductive animal kingdom. Okay? Let's take a fish. This is a fish. This is salamander, which is this kind of amphibian with legs. They can walk on the land and that they can live in the ponds, rivers. And let's take a turtle. Okay? And take a chicken, take a rabbit, and take a human. Now, why do we select this particular group of animal? Because this is what we believe the evolutionary tree represents. Okay, we all started out in the water, microorganism, single cell, your amoeba, hydra, and then it forms bigger and bigger organisms, and then eventually you get your fish first of all, and then the fish migrate onto land. Because the earth was being oxygenated. So then it becomes amphibian, and then it starts breathing air like a turtle, and then it evolved into dinosaur, and all the dinosaurs died off. Today all we are left are chickens. Chickens are descendants of dinosaurs. Okay? And then from the dinosaur offshoot are the marsupials and your mammals, okay, the warm, because dinosaurs are cold-blooded, but mammals are warm-blooded, okay, so then it evolved into a warm-blooded animal, and eventually from animal, then apes and so on, it evolved into human. So that's what we know, the classical evolutionary tree. But notice this, at the very early age of this cellular division into a very, very primitive fetus, look, they all look the same. They all look the same, and then in a few more weeks, then it differentiates into something a little bit more distinguishable from another. And then over time, in about 2-3 months, no, actually less than that, in about maybe 6 weeks or so, then it becomes more recognizable as different things. So the earlier on, so in other words, from here to here, this period of 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so, everything looks the same, and then 5, 6, 7 weeks later, and then a month later, 2 months later, then it differentiates out into different things. What that tells us is the theory, what we call ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. The evolution of species from fish to dinosaur to blah 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 are called phylogeny. Okay, phylum. Okay, we divide the animals into different phylum. It's called phylogeny. Ontogeny means the embryonic development of things. Okay, so the embryonic development recapitulates means recapture, okay, resample, mimic. That means it went through the whole evolutionary tree, okay? Hundreds and thousands of years of evolution, we go through it all within 10 months in the mother's womb. From the single cell to the human, within 10 months. We go through the whole evolution. Same with the turtle, the chicken, and everything. Okay? Everybody,